Hey everyone, Nazori here. We're going to go ahead and go over another build, this time the Arcanist. We just started using this. I was using a variant of it not long ago that was a little bit different from this, but we just tried the Frost Lance ability with Arcanist and it absolutely slaps. So we're going to go over what's in this build that's useful. Honestly, we haven't been using it that long, but what we have been using is really nice. So I'm going to give you the combos. You can mix and match whatever you want alongside with it. Give me 2 seconds while I murder this thing. All right, so the core of this build right now is definitely Frost Lance. We're using various different cards and abilities to be able to reset Frost Lance and guarantee crit with it. And we're going to go over that here in a moment, but I'll go over the rest of the build real fast. Right now, we're using Spiritual for a little bit of sustain, a lot of shields. This is being used for defensive with the defensive card. You could use either one of the cards for this for a defensive, but that's really all this is used for. If you need to mitigate damage, this, I have the extra barrier shield on as a card, so it's a big barrier. This also has a 500% barrier on it, so both of those are shields, and I am using a scepter, so I have a third shield there. So a lot of shields to prevent damage. On Witchcraft, we're using 2 different dots, a little bit of sustain here. We have Worms, which can combo with the dots in fire as well for a pretty big heal. And we have down here, which is pretty important, the GCD, global cooldown on Witchcraft Mastery. So now we're going to get into the meat of what we're doing here on this right side of the wizard tree. We have our basic ability, which is going to be important here in a moment. We have Frost Shards. I'm using this as an in-between ability. It's not the bread and butter for damage. This is I just need to hit it a bit more, or I have failed my Frost Lance combo, and my Frost Lance is now on cooldown ability. Same thing with the final one here, Ice Storm. Doesn't exactly fit into any combos. It's just there for a little extra damage. But the rest of these abilities, Frostbolt, Teleport, Cold Blast, and Frost Lance are all very connected. I'm going to go to Underground so we stop getting hit by bats. All right. So basically, we have this card on Frost Lance. These are all, like this one's mandatory for this to work. If Frost Lance critically strikes, it resets its cooldown, increases the crit damage multiplier of Frost Lance by 18%. So every time we crit, we reset cooldown. Now, every single Cold Blast ability that puts on a Deep Freeze will guarantee Frost Lance critting. That is Cold Blast. That is also Frostbolt. If you hit the third Frostbolt, it will put him into a Deep Freeze. And then also Teleport. These are all cards. If you don't have all 3 cards, it's not a big deal. You can still pull this combo off with any of the 3. But I believe Teleport's going to be the strongest one here. The others are good as well. But we're going to go ahead and demonstrate how you can pull off a lot of Frost Lances with this combo. Maybe I should talk about it first before we show it, because it's not exactly obvious how it works. Let's say you do 3 Frostbolts on a target, puts it into a Deep Freeze, and then you Frostbolt. You're going to get 1 Frostbolt off cooldown. And then if you Frostbolt again, it's likely not going to be deep frozen, depending on your haste. And you're going to put your Frost Lance on cooldown. Now, if you do it right, by doing 2 Frostbolts, Frost Lancing, and then Frostbolt as the Frost Lance is heading towards the target, it will hit it right when it deep freezes. And then you'll be able to follow it up with another Frost Lance that does crit and goes off cooldown. So you effectively get 2 Frost Lances during that combo that are both guaranteed crits and leaves that Frost Lance off cooldown. The same thing can happen with Cold Blast and Teleport. Now, the higher grade of these cards, the more seconds are applied for this Deep Freeze. So Frostbolts puts them on a 4-second. If you can see these, put it on a 3-second. I believe it can get up to a 6-second Deep Freeze, which is probably roughly like 5 Frost Lances or something like that. Now, the benefit of having Teleport, you can actually, I'm going to demonstrate it here. We're going to Frost Lance. All right, there's a warm up. We're going to Frost Lance, then Teleport, and then Frost Lance. This should pull off 3 Frost Lances. All right, here we go. Frost Lance. We're going to Teleport. Then we can Frost Lance a 2nd time and a 3rd time. There's 3 Frost Lances with a crit. I did a 4th one, which put it on cooldown. But the damage is huge. Now, the damage wasn't that big because of our Aether. We didn't build up Aether beforehand. But they do about, right now with this current build at level 36, they're doing about 1,000 to 1,200 per lance. I should also probably mention the synergy with Erupt and Combustion. These both have a card. This is why we have these. To increase our crit damage by 15%. And since we already can guarantee that this is going to crit, it works out really well. So we'll do 2. Here comes a Frost Lance with another Frostbolt, so it's off cooldown, and we get a second. That was a very low Aether one, but still you can see how it just generally spits out damage. Let's go ahead and do it better here. All right, so here comes 1. And here's a second. So roughly 1.4k damage there. We're also not buffed. I should probably buff up, as that's what we usually do for grinding. 1, 2. We're going to erupt. We're going to combustion. It's not going to survive, honestly. It crit for 13 because it was all that was left. These things are not tanky enough to handle even the build-up. Okay. But there's 2 Frost Lances. And then honestly, you can just hit it again. We put it on cooldown. Anytime we put this on cooldown, we're essentially failing. Really need some target dummies? I mean, these are target dummies. But yeah, I don't really want all this grinding in the video, essentially. So we'll probably just grab one or 2 decent combos of it. Is there anything else that we should talk about with this? It's probably worth mentioning that cloth synergizes really well with this. I only have 2 cloth and 2 plate, but cloth actually will lower your global cooldown, which should make it better for you to pull this combo off. We have about 60 haste right now, which is helping us to actually successfully do this. If you don't have enough haste, it becomes more difficult. There's very little room for error, or even potentially just a little bit of lag to come between you and it working. It died before it went off. How is Cleric repairing mobs? Too slow? We should probably wrap this up real quick. This is a pretty long, drawn-out video. Well, for this, I should also mention another note. You don't want crit chance with this build. And that's a pretty important one. We have Flow of Magic, but you don't want Hot-Headed. Because if your Flow of Magic stacks up to 50%, your Frost Lance is guaranteed to get that 50% crit. But the higher your crit chance, the higher chance that something else that you're casting is going to take that crit and take the Flow of Magic down. So honestly, with the Frostlands build, I'd recommend literally the lowest crit chance that you can possibly obtain. Closing this up, I have not experimented enough with this. We have only a couple hours with practicing Frostlance as well. I love the combo. I would recommend potentially exploring other avenues to work with this, but honestly, I think this is pretty strong. I can't really come up with any other archetypes that really synergize better than this. So, I mean, if you come up with anything, put it in the comments. I'd be really interested to see if this can be improved in any way. But yep, that's pretty much it. Guys, thank you for watching. We'll see you around.